All right, we're doing this again. Hello, I'm Laura. I am a knitter of 20 years. I am a professional developmental editor of scholarly books and a former professor of media and cultural studies, and a two-time Jeopardy champ. Trivial Knits is a channel where I talk about knitting patterns, yarn, and pose fiber-related trivia questions for you to ponder. This is my second video. I want to thank you if you're watching this and watched the first video. Thank you for the support on that video. I had very low expectations of anyone watching it, let alone engaging and commenting and liking and all of that stuff. So I really appreciate the encouragement, and thanks to your encouragement, I'm making video too. So today's video is going to be a little bit different. It's not like a standard podcast format. It is going to be a ranking of the mini shawl patterns that I have knit, and then some other ones too, but I'll get into that in a second. I have a lot of plans for other videos. It's about to be Advent season, and when I say Advent season, I don't mean actual Advent. It is the season when we start buying our Advent yarn calendars for December. Because some of them are already available, some of them are going to go on sale pretty soon. So I have a video I want to make soon about some real talk about the Advents that I have ordered and what I'm planning to get this year, if anything. So if you're interested in that and want to see that video, go ahead and subscribe now, and then you'll be sure to get it when it comes out in a few weeks, hopefully. Okay, so the name of this channel is Trivial Knits, and I explained last time that one of the reasons for that is that I'm into trivia, and I thought this could be sort of an outlet to share yarn and fiber related trivia. So in the last video, I asked a question about Angora and which two animals we associate with Angora fiber, or the word Angora. So a lot of people commented the correct answer. That was great. I learned about a third animal I had not known about. So thank you to the person who shared that. And my bonus question was about the origin of the word Angora, and why we use that word to refer to those animals. And a couple people got that one correct as well. I'm not going to give it away here in this video because I don't want to spoil the first video if you haven't watched it. Although I don't give the answer away in the first video. But in any case, I don't want to spoil the answers. So if you are interested in finding out the answers, you can go look at the comments to episode 1. I'm going to have another trivia question today, but I will share it at the end of the video. Okay, so let's get into today's video. So the concept, again, is ranking my mini shawl finished objects. And I'm also going to share some patterns that are in my Ravelry library, but I haven't knit them yet, and talk about what kinds of yarns I might use for those, which ones I'm most likely to do, which ones I might not ever do. I'm going to share a couple patterns that I don't own yet, but I might be tempted to buy someday. But for you, the viewer, you're going to learn about a lot of mini shawl patterns, and hopefully some will be new to you, some I'm sure will be familiar. And you can also share your rankings and what your favorites are in the comments on the video. I would love to hear more ideas. So, okay, I've got a lot to go over, so I'm just going to jump in so this video doesn't get too long. So the first mini shawl that I have made, and let me slow down and say what the criteria is here. So we all know about shawls. Shawls are sort of like, big knitted objects you can wrap around yourself. We know about scarves. They're sort of long knitted objects that you can wrap around your neck a few times. Mini shawls or mini scarves, I think of as they're not big enough to wrap around. They might go around your neck a time or two, but they're really sort of meant to just keep the neck warm and be, they're a smaller, quicker project. So I like that because I like something that you can have some kind of instant gratification with, which is not something knitters are usually associated with, instant gratification. Except for when we buy yarn, perhaps. But so I've knitted quite a few of these in the time that I've been knitting, and I found them to be really versatile and useful, and I probably use them much more than my full-size shawls. So I thought it would be fun to sort of go through all the ones that I've made, and I'm going to rank them in terms of how much I wear them, how useful I think they are, how fun they were to knit, how much I like the pattern, but none of them are bad. So I'm not going to say anything super mean or critical of any of these patterns. But I am going to kind of explain like why I find certain ones better than others for me, but you might like any of them. Okay, so we'll start with the first one. And this one, I actually, when I was sort of rounding up my finished objects for this, I completely forgot about it because I knitted it probably 14 or 15 years ago now. And I really don't wear it, but I've saved it because it was one of probably the most successful knits from my sort of earlier knitting days. I think it turned out really good. The photo I had taken of it on Ravelry at one point was on the designer's page. I think my photo broke in some way, so it's not up there anymore. But so let me just get to it. So this is the Dandy Neckerchief. So I will hold it up here. It's kind of hard to see the yarn. I'll try and hold it. You can sort of see the variegation in the yarn a bit. I'll talk about the yarn in a second. So this pattern was released in 2009. Like I said, it was quite a while ago. And the designer is Ariane Caron-Lacoste. And it's, as you can see, is just what it says. It's a neckerchief. It's a small triangle. I mean, you could, I'm sure, make this into a much larger, deeper scarf by just continuing it. But it's sort of designed as a neckerchief, and I added a couple of buttons because I really wasn't sure how to style this. So I added the buttons to help me sort of wear it. So I'm just going to put it on and show how it looks. So because it's lace, it has these little eyelets. I don't know if you can see them. And so I didn't have to put buttonholes or anything. I just sort of, as an afterthought, added buttons. And then I'm not going to fasten this because I'm going to take it off in a second. Or maybe I should wear it for the video. Let's see. Yeah, so very easy to just fasten it on with the buttons. There. And then you have a little jaunty neckerchief. And like I said, it has a lace pattern. I'm sure it's an easy to execute lace pattern because, like I said, I knitted this a very long time ago before, I had as many knitting skills as I have now. And there you have it. I guess while I'm wearing things, I should say what I'm wearing up top. So this is my Brewmaster hat, which I talked about in episode 1. This is a brand new release from Hunt Hand Knits, and it is a colorwork, pretty straightforward beanie pattern. The pattern comes with a lot of variations, so you can make it more slouchy if you want. You can make, a different length brim. There's different charts. I always have trouble adjusting this in the camera because it's not like looking in a mirror. Great. So I talked a lot about this pattern in episode 1. You can go check that out if you want the link to it and everything. I'll put the link here too. But this is the Brewmaster hat. Okay, back to the Mini-Shawls. So this was the Dandy Neckerchief. The yarn I used a linen or like a flax yarn for this. And I remember it very well because, so at the time, 15 years ago, I was in graduate school. I did not have a lot of money for yarns. I mostly bought from like big box craft stores. But this I splurged on. So I got this at my local yarn store at the time in Santa Monica. It's called Wild Fiber. So if you are local to Southern California, check them out. But I'm sure this was like on clearance or something because that's the only way I could afford like a nice skein of yarn. And this was Louette Euroflax worsted, I think in the color aqua. I'm fairly sure this yarn is discontinued now, but I think it was 100% linen yarn. And I think it works really well for this kind of neckerchief because it has great drape. Once you wear in the fiber, linen can be very stiff to begin with, but I probably like washed this a few times. I might have ironed it even like to just relax the fibers. And it's pretty nice actually. And it's bringing me some nice warmth, even though it's a linen fiber, which we usually associate with sort of the warmer weather months. So this could be a good little transitional piece. Yeah, I guess that's all I need to say about this one. Okay, so that the reason why I say it's my least favorite is just because I don't wear it that much. But now that I've tried it on again, maybe I'll have a little renaissance with it. We'll see. Okay, mini shawl number 2, the next one on my list. This is Les Bandanas, and this one is designed by Aimée Gille, who is the owner of La Bien-Aimée, the yarn line, if you're aware of that. This pattern was released just last year. I think it was in the summer. It's a very simple pattern. It's just knitted from end to end. So you increase till you get to the tip in the middle, and then you decrease. And you can kind of make, it's really nice because it's a very simple background to kind of make it your own. So I love stripes. So the pattern does not necessarily call for stripes, but I just incorporated stripes. And I striped this with this sort of, I don't even know what you would call this color. It's not ochre. It's a little more brown than green, I think. But anyway, this is West Wool Bicycle in the colorway Tiger. Maybe I'll hold it so you can see it in the light a little bit better. And I striped it with a strand of Spincycle. Is it called Nocturne? It's their base that's on like a gray fiber. So it's like darker than their normal dyed in the wool. I had it left over from another pattern that I'll talk about someday because it wasn't a mini shawl pattern. But so it used a very small amount of it, and it was sort of perfect for just getting the sort of color shifting without having to manage the yarn at all. It was just one strand of color shifting yarn. So this one is also sort of a neckerchief style. You can make it whatever size you want. You sort of determine the length yourself by choosing where to start decreasing. So this one you could wear a very similar way. I probably, if I was going to make it again, I would make it a little bit longer so that I would be able to tie it. It doesn't tie the best. Here, it's a little tight on my neck. But very fun. Again, extremely simple pattern just to play with yarn. And I think Aimée has also released a couple other versions, at least one other version that has intarsia built into it. I'm going to take this off so I can just model the other ones that I'm going to hold up. It's ranked toward the bottom of my list, mainly because of the way that I made it it's a little too short to be useful for me. But I do like the way that looks. I do like the colors. All right, moving on to my next one. So my next one is the Lindell Torkel. And I talked a little bit about this pattern in my first video because I made the Lindell hat in episode 1. But so this is a sort of scarflet version of uses the same motifs. I'm going to hold it up. So this is, my messy desk is being exposed because the camera is moving to focus on this. So this is, I'm trying to get it in the light. This is the Lindell Torkel. The designer is Wöldten. And it uses short rows and again, color shifting yarn to achieve that sort of the different colors and all the different little sections. And I didn't, manage the yarn at all. I just went with the skein. So you can see like the pattern is so ingenious because these long stripes help to break up the color between the sections so that the sections kind of end up looking really distinct, even though this is just one skein of yarn that is being used here. So it turns out really cool. It looks kind of like stained glass, I think. And as you can see, it's small. It's like a very dainty little scarflet. But I kind of style it the same way. I would wrap it around like this. So again, very versatile pattern because of the way you could play with different yarns. So for this one, I use that the same skein of Westwool Bicycle that I used here, the tiger I used here for the sort of edging color. It's in the pattern, it's called the contrast color. But I think of it kind of as the background color because it's the solid. And for the color shifting, I used Zauberball Crazy from Schopplewolle. I know I'm not pronouncing that correctly, but it's a German yarn brand. And I'm not totally sure of the colorway on this. I'll try to look it up and put it in the notes if you're very interested in this colorway, but it's a lot of browns and greens, which I do love browns and greens, but something about these browns and greens like just don't grab me. So that's why this one is maybe a little lower on my list. So this it's fingering weight, and so it makes a very nice light little scarflet. Okay. Let's see. The fourth mini shawl on my list is probably the one that started the craze for mini shawls. Of course, they existed before this, but this one was extremely popular. And I jumped on the bandwagon like everyone else. You probably know what I'm going to say. Maybe take a guess. Is this a trivia question? Okay, you've guessed. It is the Sophie. This is the Sophie shawl by PetiteKnit. So the Sophie scarf is the one that sort of a lot of people made. I think I don't own that pattern. I own the Sophie shawl, but I think it's pretty much the same pattern. It just uses a different yarn weight and a different needle size. So I didn't really find it necessary to buy both. I just got the shawl and figured I could make it smaller if I wanted to. But the shawl, it's not like a big shawl. It's more of a scarf. And I think depending on how you make it, you could just make it like a little mini shawl or a scarflet kind of thing. So, I've been knitting for a long time, but I have to say I was really not aware of PetiteKnit at all until I started watching YouTube videos. She just was not on my radar as a knitwear designer. I think partially because, as I said in my first video, I don't really wear sweaters because I'm very sensitive to wool. So I really usually can't have like a whole garment on my body. And I don't know, like I think I'm really attracted to like bright colors and interesting constructions. As I've said before, I'm a Stephen West super fan. So, I mean, I feel like Stephen West and PetiteKnit are on like sort of near opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of aesthetic. But that's not to say that there are not very cool PetiteKnit patterns. And I really do like the Sophie shawl / Sophie scarf. I've actually made 3 of them now. I made 2 for 2 of my aunts that were larger. They were meant to sort of function as winter scarves. This one I made for myself. And my sort of trivia related story for this one is that this was the whip I was working on the last time I was on Jeopardy, when I was there for the Champions Wildcard tournament. So this, when we were in the green room, waiting for our turn to go play on the stage, we just kind of had to occupy ourselves. So I brought knitting, of course, and this is what I was working on. Partially because it's a very simple pattern, again, easy to memorize. I knew I could sort of concentrate on other things if I needed to while I was working on this. And I think, most of the samples of this are done in one color of yarn, maybe with a strand of mohair held with it. I did not do that here. I used a mini set and did sort of a color blocking type thing. So the mini set that I used is, it's called Sultry. It is from Loco, which always has lots of beautiful hand-dyed superwash yarns. And, I sort of, it was a set of, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so it was a 10 skein mini set. And I just, put them in the order I thought would look nicest and started from one tip and just knit until I ran out of yarn of each mini. So I wanted to use up the entire set, and that's what I did. So this ended up maybe a little larger for a mini shawl, but there's different ways you could style this. You could just kind of wear it like this. You could, I don't know, flip it around, tie it in the middle. What else to say about this? Not much. It's pretty versatile. I will say that I don't love the fabric I achieved here. So this is a DK weight yarn. And I think I used the recommended needle size in the pattern. And it's a little drapier than I like. So if you like it drapey, follow the pattern. I mean, of course, your gauge will depend. But if I were to do this again, I would probably go down a needle size or 2 or use a thicker yarn, like a worsted weight yarn. So again, this is the Sophie shawl, but if you want to do the Sophie scarf, I think that might call for fingering or sport or a lighter weight. So you just adjust your needle size and your yarn weight depending on what you have and how you want the fabric to be. All right. Okay, so my next one that I want to tell you about, I don't have with me, and it's the Vertices Unite by Stephen West. I think this is one of his best patterns. I think it's a great gateway to Stephen West patterns because it uses 5 different colors, so you get to really play with color, and you stripe the colors in different combinations in different sections of the shawl. So if you like color theory and experimenting with color, it's great for that because you sort of get to pick, okay, what's going to be yarn A, B, C, D, and E, and like how are they going to play together in the different sections? If you don't like that or you're not confident in your color play, then I would just look at the projects on Ravelry or look at Stephen's samples and just sort of copy the 5 colors that somebody else did if you like the way they look together. So as I think I just said, I made this one twice. So it comes in 2 sizes. So I've made the large one, which is more of a shawl. It's big. You wrap it around yourself. You can make a really big billowy sort of scarf for the winter. But there's also a mini version or a smaller version. And this one I think sort of fits the category of mini shawls or mini scarves. So I actually love this. I want to make it again because I don't have the 2 that I have made before. Before I became a self-proclaimed Stephen West superfan, I was more of a Stephen West casual fan. So I made those, the 2 Vertices Unite in that era. And I wasn't as sort of precious about keeping my knits, especially my West knits makes. Now I kind of keep them all as collectibles. But a few years ago, I was not doing that. And so I knit them up in yarns that, were kind of like itchy to me. I didn't love them so much. So I ended up giving both of those away to other people. So I've shown a picture here of the one that I made in the small size. And I believe that I used a bunch of scraps, leftovers of Knit Pick Stroll for that. So that is a sock yarn. If I was going to make it again, I probably would try to pick like a softer yarn to wear next to skin. But I do want to make that one again. So maybe you'll see it as a work in progress in a future video. All right, so now we're getting to sort of the most successful mini shawls in my collection. So the next one that I will tell you about is the Rosinka shawl by Ambah O'Brien. And it's sort of similar dimensions to the ones that I've been showing. Now this one, if you look at the pattern page, it sort of seems to be written to be a larger shawl, but I don't, for whatever reason, the way I knitted it, it came out small, which is what I wanted. I probably went down a needle size or two because I was trying to learn from my experience with the Sophie shawl that I didn't love a drapey fabric. And the yarn I used for this was also Hue Loco DK superwash yarn. So I knew that it would be too drapey if I didn't try to tighten up my gauge on it. So rather than like adjusting the pattern at all to achieve the same dimensions, I just tightened up the gauge and ended up with a smaller shawl, which was what I wanted. So it worked out very well. So the yarns here, if you're wondering, this is from the Hue Loco 2023 Advent. It was called Oxide Fade, I want to say. And it's beautiful. I mean, she does really beautiful advents. All of her yarn is beautiful, but this one, I just love the way it turned out. The pattern starts in the center. And so I actually opened up the full skein that came with the advent first. You're usually supposed to wait till Christmas Day to open that, but I did not do that because I knew I wanted it for this pattern. So I opened it up and I started with the full skein, which is this sort of purplish brownish color. And then I went to day one of the advent. And so for each stripe, you stripe the main color and, you know, the different contrasting colors. And you could do this in just two colors. But since I was doing it with an advent, I chose to do a new color for each stripe. And I think I probably modified the pattern a little bit to reduce the width of the main color stripe and increase the width of the contrast stripe to make the best use of my yarn. Because I think if they had been equal as the pattern is written, I might have run out of that main color because with an advent, you just get the one skein. And I also really wanted to show off the advent. So I made those contrasting stripes two rows wider. It's one garter bump row wider. So I do think this just turned out beautiful. And because of the size and the tightness of the gauge, it kind of does exactly what I want to when I wear it. So just sort of wrap it around, tie a little knot. Good to go. So again, this was the Rosinka shawl by Ambah O'Brien. All right, and now we are to my last and most favorite, most worn mini shawl / scarflet. And this is another version of one I've actually already shown. This is also the Lindell Torkel by Ona Wöldten. And again, I mean, the pattern, it's just ingenious. It is so fun to knit because you just want to keep going and see what each section does, see how the colors play into it. And in this small version, you could finish each section pretty quickly. So it's, again, kind of instant gratification as you're working on it. And it makes such good use of color changing yarn. So this is Making Tracks by Junction Fiber Mill. And this is, of course, how I discovered this pattern and this designer and this yarn is from watching the Junction Fiber Mill cast here on YouTube, which I highly recommend. And they sponsored a knit along of this pattern ahead of Ravelry. I mean, I always mix up Ravelry and Rhinebeck. Before Rhinebeck last year, they held a knit along, and then they had a meetup on the hill for everyone who had made one. So I will pop up some pictures from that here, so you can see all the different people and their torkles and all the different variations. So I love how this turned out. It uses, again, just over one skein of their making tracks. You can't really get away with one skein. I think you need two. And then like half a skein of a solid color. I used their Farm Fresh. And the one that I ended up getting, I bought a kit from them. And the one that I got was straight from Savage Heart Farm, which is one of the owner of Junction Fiber Mills farms. So it's like her sheep. So, you know, in watching the millcast, I've seen the sheep get sheared and then the yarn get made and then it got sent right to me and it smells like sheep. So it's I love using this yarn because I just feel like I followed its journey, the journey of the fiber all the way from sheep to me, to my little scarf. So I don't know if you can get this exact yarn from them at this moment, but they always have different sort of local New England farm yarn that you can get. So I'm just going to put this on the way that I wear it. So again, I just wrap it around once and tie a little knot. It's great for under a coat. It keeps me so warm. I've said that I'm sensitive to wool, and this is a pretty rustic wool in my opinion, like non-superwash, and I can tolerate it pretty well. I can definitely wear it like this for, you know, a while. One thing to keep in mind about this yarn is every skein is different. And I've seen, so this colorway is in the clearing, and I've seen other people who have made this exact version with this colorway. Like Amanda, one of the other owners of Junction Fiber Mill, has this exact yarn combination, and hers looks much different than mine. It's much darker, sort of more bold colors. And I bought a couple skeins like that when I was at Rhinebeck because I loved the way hers looked. But these are the ones I got in the mail, and they're still good. They're just kind of a different, more muted kind of greens and blues. So if you are going to order the yarn, you probably want to put a note in to say, like, can you send me 2 skeins that look similar or that are on the darker side or the lighter side or whatever your sort of preference is. And they're a small mill. They're like hand packing the orders. I think they will be able to honor your request. But I highly recommend the yarn and the pattern, the Lindell Torkel. And I love this. The other way that I've ended up using it quite a bit, especially like at Rhinebeck, because you get there and you're just kind of like ready for the day of walking around the fairgrounds. So you don't want to be like, you don't want to have to go back to your car and stuff. So you kind of want to have everything with you as you need it. And so when it was chilly, like in the morning, it was good to like bundle up like this, but then it's super easy to just like let it fall like this when you get warmer. And you could like wear it with a coat. And it still looks really cute like this, in my opinion. So I just think this is like the most versatile, useful thing I've ever made. And I love it so much. Okay. I think that's all I have to show you about finished objects that I have made myself and I can sort of personally vouch for. But I have a few more in my library, especially after making this and a couple of the other ones. I sort of got the mini shawl bug. So I've been wanting to make more. So I have a few in my library. None of them are on my Make 9 for 2024, but we'll see. We'll see if I end up making them. So the first one I will tell you about is the Kira shawl. That is also by Ambah O'Brien. So Ambah O'Brien was the one who designed this one. So she has a bunch of patterns that are great for Advents. That's kind of like, I think one of her trademarks is designing for advent calendars. The Kira shawl, I think, could work great with minis, but I think it also makes really great use of color shifting yarn, which I have a lot of because I just really like it. It's a mosaic style of pattern, and it sort of has a chevron motif to it. So I thought as I go through these patterns that are in my library, I have purchased them, but I have not made them yet. I would take the opportunity to go through my yarn stash and sort of pick out yarns that I think would look good. So this is like partly for myself to sort of inspire me, like, do I really want to make this? Do I have the yarn to make this? And partly for you, maybe it'll inspire you to make some color combos from your own stash or to order new yarn if you need to do that. So I'll share a couple ideas for this one. So this pattern comes in 2 versions. So I think you can do it in fingering weight or DK weight. I'm not sure exactly what I would do. I think I'd probably do DK because I love this one so much and it's DK and it works so well for me, but fingering would be cute too. So if I was going to do fingering, I think I would use the Zauberball Crazy, which is sort of a more affordable version of like a Spincycle dyed in the wool type of yarn. It's still sort of medium budget. I think if you want to go budget, you could go to like Knit Picks Felici or Felicini. I think they've changed the name of it. But like any sort of self-striping type yarn. But this has sort of a self-striping and hand spun look to it. I do not believe it is hand spun, but it has that sort of barber pulling. Why don't I show you what I mean? So this is a color combo that I think would look really cute. So this is the Zauberball here. And so you can see what I mean by that sort of hand spun look to it. It's a fingering weight. And this is, so the tag is in German. I'm going to say this wrong. Grünewasch. I believe that translates to green week, maybe. But it has sort of a lot of those chartreuses and some grays and navies, and yeah, I think that covers it. So I think I would use this for the color shifting, and then I would pair it with, this is Westwool Bicycle, which is fingering weight. And this is the color Avocado. So I think those would look very cute together. And then another possible combo would be this one. So this is, again, the Zauberball Crazy. This one also has sort of greens, but it's a little cooler greens. And it's also got, let's see, pink and some blues and some brownish, beige-ish kind of colors. So I would maybe pair that with, this is Knitting for Olive Merino, also fingering weight. This is the color Powder. So, you know, these aren't really, this is not really my color. I don't think pastels work for me very well, but I do think these are very pretty together. If I was making a gift, this would be nice. Okay, so that's the fingering weight version of the Kira. DK, I'm excited about because I have a lot of color shifting DK yarn that I love. So let me show you what I would do. I have this skein of Feederbrook Farm. And again, it's sort of that hand spun look to it. I don't believe it is actually hand spun, but mill spun probably, locally. It's made in the USA. This is 100% Blueface Leicester. The colorway here, so I bought this at Rhinebeck and the label just says 1G, LG. Could that be the colorway? I don't know. But it's, you know, it's a lot of like rich oranges and yellows and a little bit of like chartreuse green and like blues and purples that are kind of more matted. So it's very pretty, very autumnal. So I would pair this with possibly this color. This is Westwool. This is Bicycle. So I'd have to hold it double, but you could also get the same exact color in their tandem, which is the DK weight. This is the color Cardamuma. And it's like a terracotta color. I think that would look beautiful together, but I have a couple other options because I couldn't decide. I think it would probably look cool with this yellow, sort of bring out the yellows in the yarn. This is also Westwool Bicycle. This is the color Glow. And then here's the last one that is really inspiring me. And that is also Westwool Bicycle. This is in one of their newer colors. This is called Enchanted. So it's sort of across the color wheel from the yellows and oranges. I think that would look so good. Now, the issue with me is that I do not have enough of this to hold double and make a full shawl with this. So I will probably not be making this version. I think you should make this version. And I'm going to save this and probably make a hat out of it. But I have 2 skeins of this, so I might have enough to use this with this to make the Kira. So those are my tentative plans. Okay, second pattern that I own but have not made yet is the Sweet Lil Scarfette. This is also by Ambah O'Brien, but it is not a color. It doesn't sort of play with color the way that most of her patterns do, or play with like geometric designs the way that a lot of her patterns do. This is just a small, simple little scarf to tie around the neck. Not too different from the Sophie scarf, but it is constructed differently. It's shaped differently. I love the color in her sample. That's, one of my favorite colors, as you know, if you've been watching. So if I was going to try and like emulate the sample with yarns from my stash, I would do my La Bien-Aimée Coco. So the pattern calls for 1 skein of fingering weight and 1 skein of mohair. So that's what I would do here. So this is La Bien-Aimée Merino Super Sock and La Bien-Aimée Mohair Silk. So that's one option. I kind of went through all my mohair to see like, what do I have that I could pair with something that's an identical color? I do happen to have some knitting for olive. This would be cute. I think rust is one of my colors. So this could work too. So this is the fingering weight merino and the soft silk mohair in the color rust. So you could do that. And then if you're looking for kind of a more budget option, because I would say the La Bien-Aimée is the upper end of what you might pay for hand-dyed yarn. Knitting for olive, medium, reasonable, but a little bit more. And then the budget option, Knit Picks, is my go-to for affordable yarns that still feel like they're made for, I don't know how to put this, like a serious knitter and like somebody who really like is into like fiber content and thinking about like different fabrics that you can achieve with different kinds of yarns and different fibers. This is not anything against like the big box craft stores, but there's just not a huge range there usually in like different types of yarns and fibers that you can use. Maybe that's not accurate. Maybe your big box craft store has more options, but Knit Picks is kind of my go-to for things that are priced comparably to the craft stores, but, seem to be a little more like, I don't know, professional? I don't know. So this is what I would get from Knit Picks. This is their Aloft mohair. This is like leftover. I bought this for my Fantastic shawl, another Stephen West pattern. But as you can see, there's a lot left over, almost the whole ball. So, and then I just happen to have this also from Knit Picks. This is Capretta, which is their cashmere or merino cashmere nylon blend in a fingering weight. So this is Moonstone Heather is the color here. And this, the Aloft, the mohair is Plover. So I think they would blend. I don't know that a light gray would be what I would wear, but I think that would look sophisticated on somebody else. Okay, so that's the sweet little scarfette. And then my third pattern that I have in my library, but I have not knit yet, is the Avril Mini-Shawl. This one I think is a free pattern, which is probably why I have it in the library, even though I don't have plans for it. The designer is Lolita Le Provost. And it calls for La Bien-Aimée Merino Sport, and it uses mini skeins. So, I mean, if you had any sport weight mini skeins, I think that would be great. I do have some La Bien-Aimée Merino Sport, but I'm not sure I would use it for this. I would probably use something from this collection of minis. I bought this from Fiber MacGyver at Woolen Folk last year, the yarn festival that like shall not be discussed. So yeah, I love autumn colors, sort of fell in love with this collection. It seemed like reasonably priced for this many minis. So it calls for 4 mini skeins. So I would pick out, maybe like these 4 for like a brownish beigeish, or I don't know, that would be kind of nice with that sort of celadon green. I don't know if you can really tell which 4 I'm like isolating here. But yeah, you could, like, if you have a mini set, you could play around and pick which 4. And as you can see in the pattern, like different colors are going to have their different moment in different ways. So one is going to be the bulk of the scarf, then some will be more accent, some will be more trim. So lots of different fun ways to play with color in that one. Okay, so those are the patterns that I own and I might make someday. I think of the 3, the Avril Mini-Shawl, the Sweet Little Scarfette, and the Kira, I'm probably most likely to make the Kira. I think I will try to make that one this year. And I might use that Feederbrook Farm color changing yarn. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Okay, so a few other ideas, if none of the ones that I have shared appeal to you. I kind of looked around. Well, so here's how I keep track of things I might want to make someday on Ravelry. I just put them in my cart. So I have like 40 carts on Ravelry. So, and I guess the reason I do this is that it sort of satisfies that like itch to buy something that you want. I just put it in the cart, but then I don't buy it because I know I'm not going to be able to make it right away. It's not in my immediate plans. I'm being a little frugal here. A lot of designers have sales like once or twice a year. So if I know I'm not going to make the pattern right away, I'll put it in my cart. And then when I see on Instagram that a designer's having a sale, I'll go look and see if I have a cart from that designer. And then a lot of times I do. And I'll say, oh, now I can get this pattern for 40% off or 30% off or whatever it is. So it's like, makes the decision to buy a pattern that I may never knit a little bit easier. So I hope the designers don't mind that I do that. I hope it's not like annoying to them to have their things in people's carts and not being purchased. I don't know if they can see that or track that, but that's how I keep track of the things I want to make but do not own yet. So these are patterns that I have in a cart, I have not purchased, but I might make them someday. I might get them someday. Maybe you want to make them now. So I'm going to share them with you. So the first one is the Alex scarf. This was designed by Pernille Larsen, who is the designer behind Knitting for Olive. And so it, of course, uses Knitting for Olive yarns. It comes in different sizes, different gauges. You can use any weight yarn for it, I believe. I haven't purchased this pattern, but the pattern page on Ravelry is like a little bit confusing about the amount of each weight of yarn you might need to make each different size. So I don't know that I could fully pick out my yarn until I have purchased the pattern, but I'm thinking I would go for the worsted weight version. And I would maybe do it in this ochre color, one of my favorites. This is Knit Picks Swish. So this is a superwash worsted weight yarn. So it would be very soft, superwash merino. So it might be good for like just a little ribbed scarf you wear around the neck. The next pattern I'm eyeing is scarf number 4 by My Favorite Things Knitwear. This is another designer that I think is very popular, but I just sort of like wasn't aware of until I started watching YouTube videos. I have never knit any of their patterns, but this scarf sort of spoke to me because of the texture that seems to be made with just knits and pearls, which is always nice. This one calls for cashmere, which I don't have. I don't have any sort of like halo-y cashmere to sort of achieve that look, but I think I might just do it with a regular DK weight yarn. So I might do it with this. This is La Bien-Aimée Merino DK. And this is super wash. I don't know if it would achieve exactly the same look as in the photo, but I'll keep it in mind. The next one that I'm considering is the Grab and Go. This is by a designer called SweaterFreak. I have knit at least one of her patterns before. I believe she designed the Cat Love hat that is like a cheetah print, leopard print. I'm not sure the difference between those two, but it's a cool like color work hat pattern. I'll pop a picture up over here probably. So you can see that one. But back to the scarf. So this is again just like a little mini scarf, sport weight. I would use maybe this color. This is La Bien-Aimée Merino Sport in Rust. So it's kind of an orangier rust than the Knitting for Olive, but I like it just as much. Or I don't know if I have it with me, but their La Bien-Aimé's Mount Kitchener colorway is one of my favorites of theirs. It's like a variegated, speckly, not too different from this, a little bit lighter. Yeah, I'll show it to you sometime because I've knit other things in it, but I might do that one. And then this last one, I just recently came across this one. This is called the Distant Scarf. The designer is Olga Putano, and it comes in 2 different sizes. You can get 2 different patterns. There's the fingering weight and the DK weight. So it doesn't come in one pattern, but you pick which one you want, you buy that pattern. I like this one. It looks like it uses cabling. So I like that it's a little bit different than all the other ones I've shown. I'm not a huge fan of cables. So to be honest, I probably won't make this one in the near future, but I do like the way it looks, especially the fingering weight version. And it has a nice cloud to it. I think the pattern calls for like a mohair wool blend yarn. I don't have any yarns like that. If I was going to do this, I might do it in like an alpaca. So these are just some alpaca scraps I have. These are also from Knit Picks. I think this is their alpaca cloud. I'm not 100% sure of the colors, but I think any of these would be pretty to do a little scarflet in. So this teal color, I have no idea what the colorway is. This, I believe the colorway is Daisy. It is like it's more brown than mustard. So I don't know, maybe it's more like a spicy mustard or something. But the colorway at Knit Picks is Daisy. And then this one is like a tomato red. I believe it is the Miranda colorway. These are all left over from my satellite shawl that I made a few years back. I'll tell you about that some other time maybe. Okay, so this video has gotten quite long. Thanks for sticking it out with me. I hope you discovered some new mini shawl or scarf patterns that you would enjoy making. If you have others that I didn't get to here, or that I'm not even aware of, please leave a comment below and share the ones that you love, because I would love to see them. Maybe I will put them in my cart and wait for them to go on sale and buy them. So we got to do the trivia question. So let's get to that. So, okay, 2 parts again. So the main part is, when you are knitting with rustic yarns that are kind of straight from the sheep, straight from the farm, minimal processing, by the time they get to you, they often have something in them called VM. Letter V as in Victor, letter M as in mommy. VM. What does VM stand for? That's my trivia question this week. So if you know it, go ahead and type it in the comments below. If you don't know it and want to look it up, that's fine. Trivia is partially about sort of educating yourself and learning new facts that you didn't know before. So there's no such thing as cheating on these, in my opinion. There's also no prize for knowing the answer. It's just the glory of it, or the self-enrichment of looking up the answer. So VM, what is VM? My bonus question is related to my shirt here. So I don't know if you've been reading the shirt as I've been doing the video. It has the words "Not Great Bob" on it. So this is a quote from a television program. And I'm going to explain to you how this is related to Fiverr right now. So a couple years ago, my family and I went to this campground near Santa Barbara. We're not big campers. It's cabins that are pretty nice, pretty well appointed. So it's borderline glamping. But in any case, it's sort of like outdoorsy and naturey and, good for little kids and fun. So we went to this campground, and on this campground, they have, or sort of like on the grounds of the campground, they have a bunch of animals. They have llamas. I think they had alpacas. Pretty sure they had sheep and goats and like sheep dogs to round up the sheep and goats, I guess. But so you have to kind of like walk a little ways to go see all the animals. So we did that one day. We sort of like trekked up this hill and went to see the animals, and that was fun. And then on our way back, we were walking back to the campground, and we passed another family coming toward us. And one of the people in the family, said hello. We said hello. So as we were walking away, we were like, that guy looked so familiar. Where do we know that guy from? And if you've ever been to Los Angeles or lived in Los Angeles or been around, we were in Santa Barbara, but near enough. This happens all the time because you see somebody who's like been on television or been in a commercial, or, you kind of recognize them, but you can't remember if you know them personally. Like, did you go to high school with them, or are they famous? Hard to say. Well, turns out the guy we saw at this campground when we were coming back from seeing the llamas is Bob from the TV show. The Bob of Not Great Bob. So that's my little story. And the bonus trivia question is, what show is this from? Where is Bob from? If you know who said Not Great Bob to Bob, then you could share that too. So that's the trivia for today. This video has gotten long. Thanks for sticking it out with me. If you know the answer, put it in the comments. I will be back. I think my next video will be more of a podcast style. I'll catch you up on what I've been working on, what I finished. And then pretty soon after that, I want to do that video about Advents, and what I'm planning for this year, and what maybe you should be planning for this year. So I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.